This is my zombie, who has earned the name Cecil. I would like to thank Agent 385 for his inspiration on YouTube. First, I ordered a Lindbergh skull kit offline. You can see the word Lindbergh there in the bottom left-hand corner. It was around $10. This skull is easy to put together. Just has a top cap, the main part of the skull, the jaw, and the teeth. I used the teeth that came with it, and I put this together on a pipe using epoxy putty to hold the skull in place while I worked on it. I then put the teeth on that came with the skull kit. They don't look that bad. I just removed a couple of teeth when putting them into place. I used epoxy putty to hold them temporarily before I used the acrylic liquid nails to hold it into place. I glued together the jaw at an angle to give more of an eerie look, and then I started in with the skin process. Using small bits of cotton and liquid latex, I used a flesh-colored liquid latex and just started applying layers onto the head. Here you can see the next day after it is dried, and it looks a little bit more real, but it's missing a few things, starting with ears. I made the ears out of 2-inch thick styrofoam, just drew on a design, and then carved it out with the Dremel tool and sandpaper until I got the proper form. I then attached the ear to the skull. I tried using superglue, but that eats actually through the styrofoam, so I painted the back side of the ear first before applying the superglue, and then I ended up latexing and cotton over the ears to make it match the rest of the skull. Now the ears are in place and covered up with cotton. I have also taken hair from an old mask and cut the hair off and started to put those into place, and just using cotton to go over the ends or roots of the hair to make it look real as if it's coming out of the head. I ordered some eyes from saffrondoll.com. They have a huge variety of eyes. These were just the half eyes. They're about $10. They have a lot of different colors. I wanted a more human-like look, so these are the ones I chose. And these are just temporary, held into place with cotton so I could get an idea of what it looked like. I then built up the eye socket and filled it in with cotton and just cut off a couple pieces of wood to have something to glue the eye to so it would sit in the right spot on the skull. Here you can see that I have glued the eyes into place on the wooden pieces, and then I filled in around the eyes with the cotton to make it all blend in smoothly. Now, as much fun as the head has been, it's time to get into the body. I mounted the rod that the head was actually glued to onto a frame. I use a 2x4 frame, and I'll explain that in the rest of the slides. It's very windy and rainy here in Illinois, so I use a 2x4 frame because it's sturdier and holds up better against the weather. This way I can just drive a couple of stakes in the ground and screw the stakes right into the back of the legs of the character so it'll freestand on its own without seeing the stakes. After measuring the arms to match my arm length and at the ankles that I wanted, I then filled in the chest area with spray insulation foam to build up the chest since it's going to be exposed, and I wanted it to match the rest of the skull. After the spray insulation foam has dried, I'm carving out the rib areas before I cover it in paper towels and cotton ball latex to match the rest of the skull. Here you can see that I have gone down and put paper towels and liquid latex and a little bit of cotton over the chest area and shoulder area after I built it up. On the arms there, I just wrapped carpet padding and duct tape to fill in those areas that aren't going to show. Here's more of a close-up as the liquid latex was drying. I also decided to add eyebrows on him, which you don't really end up seeing later on, but this way he looks more realistic. Now this part looks a little weird, but you gotta develop a good base color. This is a light wash of a green. I combined a green, a yellow, and a white to get this weird looking green color, but this is just to fill in to give a good base color. It'll all come together later. Here I tried adding a little bit of detail around the eyes and in the mouth, and using acrylic watercolors. When you do one wash over another, it'll just wipe right off the latex. So this actually did not work, but I just used the can of spray paint to spray in the mouth of the black. So I decided to use a different method when painting the rest of him. As you can see here, I went in with a spray can of black paint and lightly misted over that bright green and dabbed it with paper towels until it started to darken in that light green and get more of an eerie color instead of a nuclear reaction green glowing in the dark color. Here's more of a close-up as I started to add that color. I ran into a problem that I was getting a lot of stuff on the eyeballs that would not come off. So eventually I ended up taping over the eyeballs to protect them while I colored in around the eye sockets. I should have done this sooner, but I had to sand off the eyeballs to protect them. Here I'm going back and just showing you how I built up the body with 2x4s. Very, very simple. I just connected 2x4s, one in for a leg or the calf part, one in for the foot. I fastened them together and tied the boot around it. If you look closely, you can actually see marks on the ground where I drew feet because I drew in a position that I wanted, and I built it up from there a little bit at a time, adding carpet padding around the legs as I worked up the body. Here you can see the carpet padding as I build up the thigh and knee area and just wrapped it in duct tape. I still left an area there on the bottom, so when I drive the stakes into the ground, I have something to screw the stake into. And the stake will be a nice dark color, and with the pants covering it up, you'll never see the stakes, and your zombie or character will stay standing straight up. After doing both of the legs, I then attached a piece across, measuring all my body parts from ankle to calf, knee to the hip, and just doing a little bit at a time. You have to get them dressed as you put them together because you can't bend the legs or arms as you dress him. So I would dress them or put them together as I was dressing them, and I just found some old clothes and spray painted them and dragged them through the dirt to give them more of a dirty look. I found these old monster hands that I wanted to attempt to use for this zombie. They were really big, so I cut the fingertips off, and I actually cut a part up the palm to bring them in smaller too. So this is just duct tape in place for while I work on them to turn them into zombie hands. Same process as before. I just used cotton and latex, and I left spots in between where you can still see the flesh color of the existing hands. This is that bright green color again that I used for a base, which is just a wash color. This is the zombie after he has had a couple of blood spots added on to his head and on his jawline around the mouth. I just got a little bit more detailed on the painting, and then I took some dried pieces of latex and attempted to stretch it out all over the face. However, I ran into a problem once I went on to the next step of painting, and those stringy parts did not hold. As you can see here, when I applied the lacquer sealer that you can use for interior or exterior wood flooring, the stringy parts broke and it did not hold. But I'd rather have this slimy look than those pieces holding anyways. And the eyes here are just protected with tape. I was still able to save a small piece of the stringy latex. I stretched it over the face and just super glued it into place on the parts that are on the end of the face. Not sure if I like it or not, but Agent 385 did it on his, and I really liked how his looked. And then I just connected the torso to the legs and got him dressed, and this is basically how he ended up. It's a little bit of a blurry picture, but I added a bloody handprint there and just whatever you want to make him look more dirty, like he's been around eating brains. And there you go. This is my zombie Cecil. He looks pretty cool, and I will be posting more pictures in the future of other projects.